Google.com defines ignorance as lack of information, lack of knowledge. When one thinks about ignorance, one certainly doesn't think about how incredibly mighty powerful ignorance truly is. But then, when one looks back at the ideas, beliefs, actions, and superstitions from past generations, one can clearly perceive and see the mighty power of ignorance in its full glorious splendor. As one watches documentaries about the lives of mental patients during the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, one can't help to feel heartbroken, sad, disappointed, frustrated, and ashamed about the ideas, beliefs, actions, and superstitions about how humanity was fully convinced that its ways of how to treat mental illnesses and mental disorders were incontestable correct. Its ways were considered not just the one true knowledge of the cosmos, but the wise wisdom of God. In the documentary called In the Shadow of Fairview, one can see an example of how the lives of mental patients were inside the walls of mental asylums around the world in those past years. Truly, it is heartbreaking sad how it was considered acceptable correct to call mental patients as feeble-minded, retarded, morons, defectives, idiots, imbeciles, and, inside the walls of mental asylums, as inmates. One of the many painful sad parts of the documentary is when a narrator's words from the past were used to broadcast it, saying, once they have been born, defectives are happier and more useful in these institutions than when at large, but it would have been better by far for them and for the rest of the community if they had never been born. Mental patients' God-given rights to become a father or to become a mother were simply taken away by forcing inhumane sterilizations on them. Many of those sterilizations were done without their consent. Nonetheless, in Germany, Adolf Hitler took the ideas and beliefs of the eugenics movement to the most horrific extreme by allowing doctors to kill people with mental or physical disabilities. Kill those considered defective. Nevertheless, in those past years, inside the walls of asylums around the world, many mental patients were abused, mistreated, inhumane, physically restrained, severely punished, and electrically shocked as treatments. Another painful sad part of the documentary called In the Shadow of Fairview, it's when Mary Leafay says, I think what was most disturbing aside from the actual abuse itself, was the whole culture of letting it happen. But perhaps, the most barbaric, brutal treatment mental patients experienced throughout the whole world was the lobotomy. Shockingly, in 1949, Antonio Edges Moniz received the Nobel Prize for the discovery of the lobotomy. Very sadly, this barbaric, brutal surgery was considered a miracle cure for mental illnesses. Miracle cure that not only left patients worse, but also many patients would die. But because it was considered as a miracle cure, many doctors would enforce this brutal, barbaric brain surgery. Indeed, in the ignorant past, mental patients lived and experienced such heartless discriminations, cruel brutalities, barbaric treatments, inhumane injustices. Their God-given rights were simply taken away. And it was all done by professional doctors, nurses, authorities. It was all done by good, noble people, whose convincing ignorance and superstitions totally convinced them that its ways of how to treat mental illnesses and mental disorders were incontestable correct. Even today, very sadly, some people with epilepsy are killed because there are those who are wrongly convinced that their epilepsy symptoms are the behavior of drug addicts or violent mental patients. Truly, ignorance creates such frightening fears, builds such nonsense superstitions, fully convinces current present beliefs and ideas of being the correct, rightful, incontestable, one wise truth, cripples the ability to obtain knowledge, to acquire wisdom, but above all, impairs the intellectual growth of intelligent minds, obstructs and greatly slows the forward path of intellectual evolution. Sadly also, ignorance manipulates human beings so easily that it fully convinces them to embrace ignorant current present beliefs and ideas as being the holy wise wisdom of God. But then, the mighty wise wisdom of future generations look back with such disbelief, shock, and shame. that many detest the existence of ignorant past generations, whose ignorance gave birth to brutal cruelties, injustices, irreparable destruction, and death. So one wonders, in the current 2025 year, even with the current evolved knowledge and wisdom, whose human existences are being unfairly discriminated against, whose human dreams are being destroyed, whose human paths are being irreparably annihilated, whose human lives are being killed, whose God-given rights are simply taken away. Sadly, it is heartlessly being done without any kind of remorse, just like human past generations did it. All because ignorance fully convinces each human generation of each current present time that their ideas, beliefs, and superstitions are incontestable correct. Ideas, beliefs, and superstitions considered not just the one true knowledge of the cosmos, but the wise wisdom of God. So, one really wonders when humanity will finally liberate themselves from the very convincing mighty claws of ignorance.
To you, what is knowledge?